So if tomorrow you had to design something for AI, how would you go about it? What are the things that you need to know? How should you think about the problems? So I think these are all problems that all of you will face if tomorrow you had to design an AI project. Okay. So with that, I will leave it to, Aruni and Mukesh to.
So hi everyone. Thank you all for joining in, and we hope this session is insightful for you in some way. As you all know, it was back in November when ChatGPT rolled out, like how we did and what we done. I am Aruni, and I did my master's in political science, and I was about to start my PhD, but then I got interested about design and I got interested about UX because there are common components of research involved in UX as well.
Hi guys, I'm Mukesh and I'm an independent visual designer and a 3D artist working with brands in India on freelance basis.
So as I told you, there was a lot of chaos when ChatGPT came in. At the same time, like Prasad Sir mentioned, R&D initiatives started running in the community. And I thought that this would be a good chance to, get to talk to other designers and also explore new technology. So that is how we got started. And once we were done with the presentations where we talked about technology, understanding AI, Prasad Sir came up with this concept where he said, okay, let's go one step ahead and let's start designing. He did not mention or specify what or how you should do it, but he just gave us a concept that design something using AI. So we sat down and we iterated and we thought about multiple ideas, and then we finally thought that why not design something to help designers and teams themselves. So that was the concept we moved ahead with, and we would like to show you a small glimpse of what we designed.
We are not showing the entire product, but we are showing you a simple flow basically of how the product works. So this particular flow is about getting a journey map out of an AI. So we had a added layer of UI which is above the AI. So this is how it works basically. So you have to choose between what kind of product you have, and you have to choose the domain with which your product resonates, and you also have to give the scenario and the start and end of the scenario, and then you have to upload a persona. If you don't have a persona, you can also generate using AI and choose whatever the appropriate content is. And once you generate the persona, you'll have everything in front of you and you can edit everything accordingly to your content, because it's AI generated. So you need to have a control over the content. So, and you can go ahead and generate the journey map. So once you generate the journey map, you will be entering a canvas where you can again edit the journey map. And if you want to delete a phase or anything, so that can be possible. And if you want to move the phases, and you can do that.
When we started doing this project, the first thing we did was, since we were already exploring AI as technology, like learning what AI is and how does it function, we were doing that. That was kind of what helped us with a secondary research. But we were still not sure who are we designing for and what should we go ahead with. So we listed down all the artifacts, and then we decided, okay, the first thing would be to get a more understanding from other designers, and we started circulating a survey form, and we did get the results. But after we did the user survey, we were still ambiguous about how we should go ahead and how we should use the data we collected. That's when we had a first feedback call with Prasad Sir, wherein we showed him that, okay, this is what we did and we're still not very sure how to go about it. And that was the first lesson that we learned, that although we did user surveys, but the reason we were still feeling ambiguous was because we hadn't really planned out why we were doing the research. Or also, along with that, we really had not figured out what was the goal or what was the outcome that we would be expecting out of this research. And that was our first learning about why. So why exactly are we doing the process? So while we were learning why we are doing the process and understanding, reasoning out whatever we are doing the process, we finally started to do it on our own. So it all started making sense to us when we were doing the workflows. So if I show you, we did three. We now have the documentation of 3 iterations of workflow, but it took us more than that. But uh, So yeah, if you see, during while we were ideating, we directly had jumped to after doing our research and everything. We started when we started iterating, we started directly jumping onto doing low fidelity and everything. But we got the feedback and we went back and we were told to do workflows. So the first workflow that you see here is actually where we just were thinking at a whole at a macroscopic tool level, and we were just figuring out how and where everything gets placed in terms of what outputs are there, what inputs would be needed from the user, what would be shown on the tool level, and what are the AI tasks. So basically, this is how we did our first workflow, and it was if we knew that there was something off with this workflow, and this was not making much of sense to us. So once we got our feedback and we were provided with many resources related to workflow, we did another attempt where parallelly we were also doing the minimization of our prompts for the backend structure to function. And with this iteration of workflow, we were able to figure out that okay, there will be edge cases where the user will not be doing what is required to do in a linear way. So with that understanding, we went ahead and finally we did a iteration wherein we did the workflow, which I suppose was near to what is expected out of a workflow. So we did list all the user actions. We did the description of all the user actions to understand that why do we need this user action. And for that, we did work pros and cons of each user action that was being held, and listed out all the error state. So this helped us in understanding that, okay, even before doing the patterns, or even before doing the low fidelity framework, we had an understanding, clear guide map to why are we doing the user actions, or why are we asking the user to put in that input. And with this understanding, we were able to get a clear picture of what we were doing, and we went ahead to finally do the interface. But yeah, and again, when we were doing the interface, we realized we were not doing it the wrong way. But like, all of us have heard that, you should do. There's this concept that goes around when we talk about interfaces, that minimalism. But why minimalism, and how do you actually do it? That was a question I always had in my head. And also, when people talk about, like, when you're learning, or when you're doing a real-time project, material design system guidelines are a good resource to look to and use it as a guiding principle, and then do the design. But all of that never made sense for me, honestly, before this project, because I was not able to understand what is happening and why is it happening. And that's when we again had a feedback call with Prasad Sir, where I exactly asked him why material design guidelines, or why are we doing it this way. That's when with what we had done, he showed us our shortcomings. So basically, if you see on the right hand side, we made a text field where the user was supposed to enter the file name. And if you see, the indicator of the file name is a red, which is a variation from the error state marked is a different color red. And within this small element that you see, there is a extra line of code that needs to be added. And each time we do a variation like that, the effort for the developer increases. And like as you can see here in the code itself, the hex code that is written is different. And again, if you see on the right hand side, the hex code that is used for showing the error state and the indicator is same, saving developer the effort of going back again and looking to for each small design pattern, making a change in the code. And which also, if you think at a product level, affects when we talk about scaling the product or setting up a design system, because each time the effort increases. And this is just one example of the kind of error that we all do. And that is where material design guidelines come in picture, where we actually learned how to use them. And so basically, that is when we realized like how to use the specifications that are given in the material design system and come back and use it. So we were able to connect the dots which were missing before. This was a huge learning for me, because I before this could not relate to why material design guidelines are to follow. So these were my major learnings for this project. And
So also we have done a lot of, like earlier we have done a type scale and the typeset, but we were not actually structured in terms of using the type sizes. So after a feedback call with Prasad, we figured out, okay, we are using too many type sizes and it was completely random. So we fixed on certain styles that are necessary only for the entire tool, even for the pop-ups and for the welcome screens and everything. So we shot down the typeset and also the colors. So this was the entire color set we were following earlier. So after the call with Prasad and understanding how the guidelines were need to be followed properly to save time for developer and also make it much more better for the users who is using it. So we stuck to just these few colors overall entire the product. So that was one other learning. So talking of GPT again, so of course, whenever we are developing a tool, we just need to understand the underlying technology as well, at least at a surface level, to a level that as a designer needs to understand. But in terms of when we are designing with AI, it was a lot of exploration in terms of both prompts and also how the AI is implemented in the backend. So we started understanding the prompts in the initial state by doing multiple iterations. We have done a lot of iterations for just getting the prompts, somewhere around 18 main iterations, and also trying different wordings and everything. We couldn't figure out the right words that we need to use in the prompting, which Aruni and actually Prasad Sir helped us choose the right words. Just like if we are getting a journey map in a table, but we are getting in a different format actually. So the journey map that we have generated was not in the form of this way, where user actions, touch points and everything like the general notation we use. So these were in the vertical column, but we don't know how to actually get it in this format. So Prasad Sir helped us like with a small word called transpose, and we got it right, which we couldn't figure out. And there are much more other things. Again, we figured out in terms of language that needs to be used with GPT. And also, so we also have understood that we need to optimize for the tokens that GPT is going to take, because whenever we are using AI tools, it is running on the cloud. So it is going to eat the tokens for a user. So we had to shorten the prompts and also reduce the number of prompts actually. So that is one big learning for us. And also reducing the prompts is also important for a user to reduce his input and outsource the burden to the AI, what all we can do. So initially we had a huge set of prompts basically that were entirely huge, and we were like having a lot of prompts and huge inputs that we are giving into AI, which were like around 8 to 10 prompts. After the feedback from multiple feedbacks from Prasad Sir, we figured out, okay, there needs to be a lot of work that needs to be done on prompts, and we reduced it to as few prompts as possible. And also yeah, we have also figured out error prompts that we can outsource the error states to the AI. That all. Yeah. While we were entirely doing the product, there was no competitor as such. But in the meantime, while we were researching, there was a competitor that popped up, which helped us with the learning actually. So we actually there was this product called Coco, which was a plugin for Figma, which helped us, which is also running on GPT, and it was actually giving you the artifacts like journey map, persona, and design planning and interview questions, and many more. So that was our wake up call to understand. Okay, we were designing the prompts the right way, but we were not also structuring the prompts the right way. Again, we took it to Prasad Sir, and Prasad Sir guided us the right way to make it in a structured format, and what kind of. Also, one of the biggest learning from Coco is that the generation thing and the backend thing, what is functioning at a software level apart from the AI and UI, is one of the aspect that again we had to discover only after looking at Coco. And yeah, so while designing for the AI, the key learnings were to understanding the technology, as I have explained right now, and the prioritizing the user needs. Just like any other UX project, we had to prioritize the user needs. But there comes a constraint when with the limitations of the AI and the power it has, because of the ambiguous answers that it would give, and it would hallucinate and everything. So we have to give the user control and everything, and also we have to take care of all the errors, and we have to help the user with the kind of answers that it is giving. That way, we again have to focus on the error states. So again, that we have figured out at the workflow level, and yeah.
Even doing the design patterns, I did not know how and why to use the design system guidelines, or even in the case when we were doing the research. I knew user surveys are done, I knew user interviews are done, but exactly to understand why each step is important, and why are we doing it in a certain way, and even having a reasoning of what you haven't done. So we haven't really done this project in any linear way. There were times where we had reached the ideation phase, but we went back to do some research about the technology, maybe like little more understanding how API is working, and how GPT API is working. So that was all happening, but everything was all over the place. So we were learning simultaneously, we were implementing things simultaneously. That's where having a mentor helped. Like each time we were going out of the scope, or like going way beyond the scope, Prasad Sir would come in. He would help us with not just with the resources, but with his feedback, which would again align us to what we have decided to do and how we should do it. So both the important components. That is where I feel having a mentor is really important. With that, I would like to thank you all for listening to us, and I would actually appreciate if you guys could give us some feedback, and or like even talk about or know something that we did with this project.
Yes. Hi Mukesh, hi Aruni.
Hi, Charu.
So I loved your presentation. काफी concise and काफी चीजें समझ भी आई. But there were a couple of questions that I had. One was, आपने workflow में बात की कि like you identified certain errors that the user could possibly make or could be confused about. So how did you exactly identify those errors? What were your sources for that? And when you did, how did you know that these are enough for for now, and that there can't be more important other ones here as well?
So one of the there are multiple errors. One thing could be an AI could go a little out of the space. So we wanted to limit the AI. So that way we figured out one errors, and we actually structured the prompts that way. So that is basically our basic understanding of while we were going through the prompts, and while it was giving the unnecessary content for us. And the other errors were like basically the user errors, which we figured out while figuring out each step of the user flow. So while we have taken a journey, and for that we have done a workflow, every step we have written what is happening there and what user is doing there. And within that, we have figured out the errors, what could go wrong there. And after designing again and after showing to the mentor again, the mentor gave us some feedback. And again, there we got in more errors listed, and that way we figured out.
So it was based on your experiences and the suggestions, right?
And
Yeah.
one basic thing that everybody takes help of, I think, heuristic.
Of course.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's it.
If I could clarify a little bit, Charu, you asked about how to find the error states.
Yes.
And how do you know that those error states are the ones that are relevant? So the simple thing is, the first step that they did was, because when you break it down by workflow, you're looking at one step at a time. Okay. And in each of those steps, what you're doing is what Aruni said. She said, okay, we applied heuristics. So we said, okay, if we apply all these rules, what are the kinds of errors that are likely to happen here? Okay. So you list out all those errors. And then you say, okay, well, if you have these 5 errors, then possibly how do you combine them? What is the errors that are most likely to happen to least likely to happen? Okay. Then there will be one type of error that is an unhandled error, that you don't even know what that error was, but something happened. So what you do is you create the most likely set of errors. You look at it at a step by step. So you're not like looking at the whole picture, but only just one small part of the picture. You're identifying all the possible errors that you think. You're prioritizing those errors by how likely you think they are. And then you also identify another kind of error that nobody has seen before, and you create a general error state. Okay. So that way, what happens is, step by step, at every place, you're identifying all possible errors. Right? Well, maybe that's not true, right? You're not identifying all possible errors. You're identifying the most frequent errors. And when the frequent error doesn't happen, when some other error happens that you did not anticipate, you still have a general error state, but you are also logging that data. Okay. So now tomorrow you can go into the data logs and say, show me all the errors that happened. And when those errors happen, you can actually say, well, wait a minute. There was this one type of error that I did not anticipate, but that is happening a lot. So now let me design for that. Go ahead, Akash.
I have a question from Aruni and Mukesh. So you mentioned about you're reducing the development effort, right? So I want to understand, like, if you're creating an amazing experience, right? So how would you compromise between UX and development effort, right?
I would actually say there are a couple of different layers of working with engineering. Okay. And this is the common fact that every practicing designer will tell you, is they get 2 levels of feedback. Okay. The first level of feedback is at product management, where they'll say, okay, this guy doesn't understand my product. So that is the first feedback that you will get as a designer. The second level of feedback is the engineer will say, this guy designs unrealistic designs. Okay. So these are common. So engineering and product management are the 2 main stakeholders that we work with, and both of those guys give these feedback. So now your question is pertinent to the engineering component, and I will answer that. So from at one level, what Aruni and Mukesh were talking about was, you want to focus on what is the core, element, right? So you're optimizing the code. So that is one of those things that you're doing, where you're saying, I'm optimizing all my design patterns and I'm standardizing my design patterns. Okay. So that way, from an engineering perspective, you write once and you reuse multiple times. Okay. So there is that effort that needs to be automated. So that is something that every designer needs to be thinking about and working on. Okay. Now the second component that you were talking about, which is, okay, so I created this design, but then my product manager basically comes back and says it's unrealistic because we don't have the time. Okay. So the question is, well, what is the intention behind that design? So that is something that is very, very important for us as designers to know. Well, why am I designing this feature? Okay. What problem am I solving? If I'm solving problem X, is there a different way that I can solve it? Okay. So what Mukesh was saying was, okay, can you constrain the problem a little bit more? Okay. Can you constrain the process so that you are reducing the ambiguity? That's one way you can do it. So when you reduce the ambiguity, you reduce the number of errors. That's one way. The other way is you're saying, okay, can I, actually solve it a different way? Can I make it more contextual? So if you have to scan a barcode, maybe it's not a process, but you're doing something that is more aligned with what the user is doing, and you're within that context, you are asking them to do one thing, right? So that's a different way of looking at it. Or the other way is you're saying, okay, so maybe you just put a lot of guardrails and you just say this is the way you're going and you only have to do it this way, right? So there are different strategies. Now, without looking at the specific problem that you are looking at, I would not be able to tell you specifically what you can do, but I would say, think about constraining, think about simplifying, think about solving the intention. And I think generally these would give you at least to a place where you can solve the problem. Okay. Now, I have yet to come across a problem. Generally, when I give recommendations or when I tell people to give recommendations on a problem they've identified, I say give 3 levels of problems. The first one is, what is the correct problem? So you are able to solve the problem from the root. Okay. The second one is you're saying, okay, what is an optimal solution? Okay. Where you're saying, okay, I may not be able to solve it from the root because it's going to take me time, but here's a solution that will stick and will work for the longer period of time. Okay. Now, the third one is I'm going to put a bandage right now, but I will come back to it and solve it if I get the data saying that it is a very frequent problem. Okay. So that is the way that I kind of recommend that we approach these kinds of situations where you're looking at 3 sets of problems. One optimized for time, the other optimized for long-term sustainability. So I think that's about as much time as we have for questions. But overall, I think there are a couple of different data points that I'm getting out of this. And please correct me if I'm wrong. But overall, I think the number one data point that is there is designing for AI is no different from designing for any product. It's the same. The principles that you need are the same. The knowledge that you need is the same. I mean, technical skills from a UX perspective are the same. However, what is different is your understanding of the tool. What is the tool capable of executing? Right? So you need to get really good. If you're going to use a new technology, you need to understand the technology, understand the capabilities and limitations of technology so that you can design for that technology. Correct?
Yeah, yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And then the second insight that I'm getting from you guys is this. So, which is the fact that you can learn. So this is also, I get a number of questions about ADPList, like how should we leverage ADPList and how do we learn from there? And I think the point you're making is, listen, if you you can go talk to 10 people on ADPList and say, give me advice. Okay. But that is not giving you an understanding of end-to-end. But whereas if you go to them and say, okay, I'm working on this project, can you please give me, guide me while I work on this project from beginning to end? Okay. Can you give me feedback? That is a lot more valuable because you are sitting with that individual and you're constantly getting feedback and you're learning how to execute the project and you're learning where you're making mistakes and you're leveraging that to kind of come up with your final project. Is that right?
Yes. Actually, feedback is really important.
Awesome. So that is something that I would advise people, especially if you are looking at building your portfolios and you are looking at building your work. I would say go on ADPList and don't go to the people that have, less than 10 years of experience. Go to people who have more than 10 years of experience. People who can tell you exactly what your problem is, what concepts you need to learn, and then tell them, listen, I'm doing this project. I would love for you to guide me on this project. Do you have time? And maybe you just give like 2 hours a month. Okay. And then you basically go in and you be disciplined, do your work, get feedback, fix it, get feedback until you're ready. And then by the time you're done, you will not only have executed a project that is ready for your portfolio, you would have also built a very strong relationship with your mentor. Right? The only trade-off that I see, given the number of people that started and the number of people that ended, is you should be very determined to complete it, right? And you should be committed, because no mentor will sit down and say, okay, please come back, come back, come back. Nobody will do that. You have to go back and you have to be very disciplined about doing that. Is that correct? Any other lessons or learnings that you got through the process, or is that a good summary of what you wanted to, what you were sharing?
Again, yeah, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
So one important learning from my side is that, okay, team dynamics is really important. Not all the time the team members would be weighing their mind completely. I have my lows and Aruni has her lows. So at that point in time, maybe we need to take our charges and we need to move the project ahead to meet the timelines again. So that is one important learning that we had, which we implemented properly from time to time.
Awesome. So thank you very much, guys. Good job done. And I think this was a very disciplined 4 to 6 months that you've spent, like, just dedicated on doing this project. Along the way, you did